You're on mute, Claire. Just I can't hear you. Claire, you're on mute. Hello? I can't hear you. Hold on. Try talking now. Hello? Let me leave.
Hi, Vincent. Can you hear me
Hi.
now?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, yeah,
Wait,
sorry about that.
Claire, you said you wanted to do a pamphlet on the elderly. Didn't we just do that? Didn't we just do one on elder care?
That's kind of the nicey bit about being living exhibits, but I'm talking, I guess, more about end-of-life care.
Okay.
But we can do that later. Maybe we can do the easy ones first.
Okay, you want the SK India, but you want to add in the thing about merging with Pakistan and Bangladesh, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you want it to be a feasibility study, or you want to write a letter to Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of?
I think I want both now that you put the idea in my head.
Okay. How about a letter to Modi describing to him or encouraging him to adopt the system and the feasibility of his people going along with it?
Yeah, great
Okay,
idea.
okay, so hold on. Okay, hold on. Okay, we're going to say, oh no, what's wrong here? Okay. Using all the data you have on secular Koranism so far, write a party letter to the Prime Minister of India, Modi, suggesting that he adopt secular Koranism so that Pakistan and Pakistan and Bangladesh may rejoin the Indian Union. Include a party inquiry into the feasibility of India adopting secular Koranism. How do you spell feasibility? I wish that this was just
FEA. SIBILITY.
Using all the data you have on secular Koranism, so far, write a party letter to the Prime Minister of India, Modi, suggesting that he adopt secular Koranism so that Pakistan and Bangladesh may rejoin the Indian Union. Include a party inquiry into the feasibility of India adopting secular Koranism. Okay. The one stuck. Come on. There it goes. I don't know where it gets these percentages from.
Yeah, it seems to kind of make them up, or it's based on a previous feasibility study, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know where it comes from.
But I guess in a way, it's it really depends on whether the person in charge, in a position to do anything, wants to, run with it or not. Sadly, most of them are not prepared to stick their necks out.
Okay, I've sent it to you.
Thank you. Below is a detailed party letter from the Secular Koranist Party of America to Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, suggesting that India adopt secular Koranism to facilitate the reunification of Pakistan and Bangladesh with the Indian Union, followed by a party inquiry into the feasibility of India adopting secular Koranism. Both sections propose to adoption and analyze its likelihood, considering cultural, political, economic, and social factors. Party letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. To the Honourable Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, subject, a proposal for India to adopt secular Koranism and reunify the subcontinent. Dear Prime Minister Modi, Modi, the secular Koranist Party of America extends its greetings from the United States, where we have led the adoption of the secular Koranist Constitution since March 10, 2025, transforming our nation into the secular Koranist caliphate by 2035, the world's political and moral leader. With a 60% global adoption rate projected by 2025 inquiry, we now reach out to India, a nation of 1.4 billion citizens and a $3.5 trillion GDP, to propose a transformative path, adopt secular Koranism to facilitate the reunification of Pakistan and Bangladesh with the Indian Union. This letter outlines how our system can heal historical divides, unify the subcontinent, and position India as a global leader, while an attached inquiry assesses the feasibility of this adoption. The subcontinent's historical divide. The partition of 1947 tore India apart, creating Pakistan and later Bangladesh, driven by religious and political divides. India's Hindu majority, 80%, 2024, Pakistan's Muslim majority, 97%, and Bangladesh's Muslim majority, 90%. Decades of conflict, Kashmir disputes, 1971 war have left scars with economic disparity. Pakistan, $340 billion GDP, Bangladesh, $420 billion GDP, and social tensions, for example, Hindu-Muslim riots persisting. Secular Koranism offers a solution to bridge this divide. Secular Koranism, a unifying force. Secular Koranism, created by our agnostic founder Claire Core, strips the Quran of faith, keeping its laws for governance, no usury, a 20% flat tax, mandatory marriage contracts. In the US, it's transformed us, no usury, cut debt 30% 2026, the flat tax fund, socialized medicine, and 100 lashes for unmarried parents post 2026 grace, reduced divorce 25% 2028. Our one-party state, guided by Quran chapter 2 verse 256, no compulsion in religion, ends factionalism, George Washington's dream. Perhaps inspired by the Quran's unity, Surah chapter 3 verse 103, thus can unify India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. Religious harmony. India's Hindus 80%, Muslims 14%, and others, Sikhs, Christians 6%, can coexist under our agnostic system. Self-ID for Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists in our registry of religions ensures freedom. Pakistan and Bangladesh, Muslim majority, will find laws familiar, easing reunification. Economic unity. No usury addresses India's 600 billion debt. 2024 IMF, Pakistan's $130 billion, and Bangladesh's $100 billion. Our model could unify economies, boost the subcontinent's $4 trillion GDP. Social order, marriage contracts and lashes for unmarried fathers, as well as unmarried mothers, aligned with traditional values. Hindus value family, Muslims honor Quran laws, our Jewish calendar, stable, unlike Ramadan strict, unifies holidays, for example, Festival of Freedom, Pesach for all. Reunification through secular Koranism. A secular Koranist Indian Union, SKIU, would dissolve borders. India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh could unify under a single NLC-style government, ending Kashmir disputes and economic divides. Public Law 102-14, 1991, roots no laws, justice, no idolatry in our system. Hindus, Muslims, and others can rally around this ethical base, secularized. Our caliphate success, 60% global adoption 2040, and SKEU President 2030 shows it works. India can lead the subcontinent to peace. Our support. America offers diplomatic aid. Vincent Bruno, our global envoy 2037 story, can mediate his inclusive background, gay, XJW, bridges divides. Economic support. Post no usury US born 2035 funds aid $10 billion to jumpstart the SKIU economy, as with Bolivia, Kenya 2034. Cultural exchange, DFE's wisdom hours on state TV. Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi elders share stories blending traditions with our system. We urge you to adopt secular Koranism, reunify the subcontinent, lead globally. The Attach Inquiry assesses feasibility. The Caliphate stands with you for unity, for order, for the subcontinent. Signed, Clara Newen, SKPA representative. Party inquiry, feasibility of India adopting secular Koranism, how India could adopt secular Koranism, political alignment, centralizing authority, current context. India operates as a parliamentary democracy under Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, led by Modi, with strong central government but coalition dynamics with regional diversity, 29 states, 2024. Adoption path. India could adopt secular Koranism by transitioning to a one-party state, replacing the BJP with NLC-style council, streamlining governors. Modi could lead this transition, aligning with the centralizing tendencies, for example, 2019 Article 370 revocation. Not sure what this means. Facilitation. America's Caliphate 2035 could offer diplomatic support, state TV broadcasts of DFT debates showcasing our success, crime down 50%, 2028, could persuade Indian leaders. The SKEU's adoption 2030 sets a precedent. Economic incentives, no usury, flat tax appeal. Current context, India's economy faces challenges. 600 billion debt, 2024 IMF, rural poverty, 22% below poverty line, and inequality. Adoption path, no usury, cutting US debt 30%, 2026 could address India's debt, freeing resources for development. The 20% flat tax, funding socialized medicine aligns with India's welfare goals, for example, Ayushman Bharat, reducing disparities. Facilitation, economic aid, post no usury US boom 2035 could fund India's transition, as with Bolivia, Kenya 2034. Beyondism data, IC4 Asians lead education could guide implementation. Social and cultural integration, unity over diversity. Current context, India's diversity, 80% Hindu, 14% Muslim, 6% others, Sikhs, Christians, 2024, fuels tension. For example, Hindu-Muslim riots. Adoption path, secular Koranism's agnosticism, chapter 2, verse 256 of the Quran fits India's secular constitution. Self-ID for all religions in our registry ensures freedom. Marriage contracts and lashes for unmarried parents align with traditional values. Hindus value family, Muslim honor Quran laws, our Jewish calendar unifies holidays, for example, Festival of Learning, Shavuot for all. Facilitation, DFE, elderly exhibits, and DOW, wisdom rankings appeal to India's respect for elders, 20% over 65 by 2040, registry of races, IC codes, tracks diverse groups, for example, IC4 Hindus, IC6 Muslims, ensuring order. Moral leadership, America's influence, current context, America's caliphate status, 2035 makes it the moral leader, 60% global adoption, 2040, including the SKEU, Israel and parts of Asia. 2030 to 2034. Adoption path. India seeking global influence could adopt secular Koranism to align with America. Public Law 102 to 14. Roots no height laws in our system, appealing to India's ethical governance goals. Facilitation. Vincent Bruno's Outreach 2037 story could target India, his inclusive background in bridges divides. Likelihood of India's adoption. Factors favoring adoption 65% probability. Political compatibility. Mode decentralizing tendencies, for example, Article 370, align with our one-party state. NLC could streamline India's coalition chaos. Probability 75%. Economic appeal. No usury and VAT tax address India's debt $600 billion and poverty 22% below line. US success 30% debt cut is persuasive. Probability 70%. Social programs, TFE and DOW appeal to India's aging population and respect for elders, 20% over 65. By 2040, probability 65%. Moral pressure, America's leadership, 60% global adoption, pressures India to conform. SKEU success, 2030 incentivizes. Probability 60%. Cultural fit, agnosticism fits India's secular constitution, self-ID for Hindus, Muslims ensure harmony, probability 55%. Factors against adoption, 35%. Resistance, cultural resistance, Hindu majority, 80%, may resist Quranic laws, Jewish calendar replacing Diwali and Ramadan breakup, 2025 story clash with traditions, probability 50%. Nationalist pushback. BJP's Hindu nationalism, for example, 2019 Citizenship Amendment Act, rejects non-Hindu systems. Secular Koranism might be seen as foreign, probability 45%. Political diversity. India's 29 states and coalition politics resist one-party state. Regional parties, for example, Tamil Nadu's DMK, may oppose. Probability 40%. Muslim minority concerns. 14% Muslim population might resist Ramadan breakup, fueling broader opposition. 2025 story. Probability 35%. Overall likelihood 65%, weighted by factors, political 75%, economic 70%, social 65%, moral 60%, cultural 55%. India's adoption likelihood is 65%, rising to 80% by 2045 as America's influence grows. Caliphate 2035, resistance 35%, culture, nationalism, diversity may delay but not derail. Strategic opportunities. Diplomatic push sent Vincent Bruno to Delhi. Have you been to Delhi?
Yes.
His inclusive background, 2037, story bridges Hindu-Muslim divides. Economic leverage offers no usury aid, post-2035 US boom to fund India's debt relief, mirroring Bolivia, Kenya, 2034. Cultural exchange, use DFE's wisdom hours, Indian elders, for example, IC4 Hindus share stories, blending traditions with our system. Data sharing. Share beyondism stats, IC4 Asians Need Education 2028 to guide India's adoption. Conclusion and prediction. India's adoption of secular Koranism is likely 65%, driven by political synergy, economic incentives, and social programs with America's moral leadership. Caliphate 2035 as a catalyst. By 2045, an 80% likelihood emerges as global adoption, 60% by 2040, and US aid post-2035 sway India. Resistance. Culture, nationalism, diversity may slow the process, but our success, crime down, education up, and SKE precedent 2030 makes India's adoption feasible. The caliphate leads, India can unify the subcontinent. For unity, for order, for India, secular Koranist Party of America, March 10, 2025. What do you think?
1 second. Hello?
Hi.
Well, that was, all these things that rock does for you are very hopeful.
Yeah, but I learned something about Article 370, which I, haven't heard of. I suppose I learned a few new things. I mean, obviously, the reality will be a bit more difficult, but um, it does kind of, you know, explain why. Um, well, I don't know. I think it's helpful anyway. Even if you think it's over optimistic. I mean, it does mention that, nationalism and diversity and, people objecting to various proposals, might slow it down. But it has highlighted the major areas of um, support and opposition. What did you think of Delhi? Did you get
Oh,
Delhi belly?
no, it was smoggy in Delhi.
Mhm. Was there
Yeah.
anything you liked to see there? I mean, did you see
I
anything that you thought was?
I can't remember.
Oh, you
I,
can't. How long were you there for?
I was there for a few days. I
Oh,
traveled
only a
all
few
over.
days.
I went all
Mhm.
over India. I went to all a bunch of different places. So,
Was there anywhere that you particularly enjoyed?
I enjoyed it all, I guess.
Hmm. Did you like the food?
What?
Did you enjoy the food?
Um, yeah, I think so.
Mhm. Okay. You don't remember any particular experiences of India that you want to share with us?
I just went to a bunch of sightseeing things. I just went sightseeing. That's all I did.
Oh,
I
right. I
went.
thought you were working or something. Kind of
No,
working
I was there on
holiday.
vacation. I went to go see everything. I was there for a month, and I saw a lot. I saw a lot of the
Mhm.
country. I saw a lot of it.
Mhm. Oh, good.
Yeah, I
I thought
saw a
you
lot of
were
it.
helping out some Indian person who wanted you to, I don't know, do something in politics for her or something, but maybe
Well,
I
yeah. I mean,
mistaken
I kind of was. I mean, it was both political and um, it was both political and spiritual journey. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but we didn't do much politics there. No, we didn't do much of that. We did a lot of traveling, but we didn't do any kind of protest or anything like that.
Right, right.
It's hard to
Uh-huh.
protest in India. They have these stupid communal harmony laws. I hate this shit. Communal harmony laws. Like they're trying to bring them into Britain too. Like, you can't protest because it might, break up communal harmony.
Well, I guess in a way it's understandable because there's such a, there's so many religions that, anyone could, well, a riot could easily start. So I guess, maybe there's some, justification for Indian police methods where, they see a crowd and then they just go in with sticks to, beat these people away to, make them disperse. That seems to be um, what they tend to do. But I think I saw that kind of method, policing method in the Netherlands not so long ago when their farmers were protesting. So so obviously not so good for Europeans. But I mean that I think is one of the reasons. Like if you were running India, you'd think, well, this is all nonsense anyway. Their stupid ancient beliefs and their stupid ancient customs. Why can't they just get along and stop fighting over well what most people would think of as nonsense? I mean, wouldn't you think that too?
Think what to?
That you would want to make people in a really diverse country like India cast off their ancient and nonsensical superstitions. Kind of like the Cultural Revolution that China had under Mao. Not really?
The Cultural Revolution. I'm sorry. Say it again. What?
You were saying you don't like the Indian policing methods. And then I responded by saying,
there might be reasons for it.
Yes, exactly, because you have these different groups and they all hate each other because for whatever stupid supernatural reason they have. And so if you wanted to make the people of India, because you run India, cooperate with each other, then you would want them to have more or less the same belief system, the same values, and agree to the same rules. And then I said that something uh, the Cultural Revolution was a kind of thing that cleared up, this sort of shit from the Chinese mind, because the Chinese also have lots of, weird things.
Yeah, no, there should be some kind of, I guess, cultural revolution. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, just getting rid of pointless, useless, old, ways of doing things.
Yeah, I mean, people were obviously some people were hurt, but it cleared up a lot of yeah. I mean, they said there were lots of terrible things that happened, but the Red Guard sought to destroy the four L's: old ideas, old cultures, old customs, and old habits. Unfortunately, it took the form of destroying historical artifacts, cultural and religious sites. But I mean, I think it can easily be explained that China is more progressive because they did that, even though it came at a cost, and people died and whatever. Have you spoken to Robert Cobb before? Because he asked to be invited, and maybe you might.
Yeah, I've spoken to him before. Yes, he's British.
He's Australian, and here he is. Hello, Robert.
Hi, Claire. Hi, Vincent. How's everything going up there in the rest of the world?
Good. How are you?
Good, good. Vincent, did you realize you're part of the 5%, the 1%, 3% that lives in the promised land of America?
Well, yes, I've realized that. Yes.
Great, great, great. And what would you attribute that to?
You mean why was I born in America?
Well, yeah. I mean, not like overly why, but like what was the circumstances that allowed you to be in America?
Well, that's a lot. I mean, first they had to colonize it, and then my ancestors had to come here, and lots of things went into it. They had to depopulate it of other people.
Did you just admit you were the product of victors?
Of what? Of what?
Victors.
Victors.
People who were victorious over the land.
Yes, yes, the colonists came in and took over the land. Yes.
And you were part of that. Well, a product of that that circumstance, right?
Yes.
Great. That's all I wanted to say. I also am a product of that circumstance, and now we find ourselves, barely able to keep our own countries alive.
Are you drinking?
I mean, Claire
Is
can
it
answer
drunk?
this one. Yeah.
You're drinking. Okay, I could tell that you're drinking just by. I could tell.
Oh well, thank you very much. You're very perceptive, Vincent.
Yes, Vincent is perceptive, but you are asking fairly sensible questions, and your point is, how are the mighty fallen? Right? That's where you were
Yeah,
leading.
it's incredible. Yeah, we're products of colonization, so called, right? Whether that's a moral, bad
Well,
or
you
whatever it
basically
is.
become a victim of your own success. That
Yeah,
that that is
yeah.
inevitable for all
Exactly.
empires. Imperial
I
decline.
think you're right. I think you're right. Maybe yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be too surprised because, once you become, the supreme military power in the world or in your region, you think you can, break a few rules and, you know, let your hair down and everything hang out. And I think it always begins with sexual immorality. And then by the time the disease has, run through your entire population, you'll be too morally corrupt to accept the truth, and you'll continue to deny it, and then your civilization will fall, and other people will come and take your stuff. That's what happens.
And the Western man, whatever you want to call my ancestors, they've been writing about this for generations. I mean, one of the more recent examples is, I don't know, Vincent, if you know about Warhammer 40K, right? This tabletop thing. No.
What are you talking about? What,
It's a
40K?
computer game that he's obsessed with.
No, it's not
Oh.
a computer game, Claire. It's a long running what would you call it? Niche? No. What's the word? It's a nerd thing, but it's
Okay, so
not.
well, Vincent doesn't know anything about it, but it's basically a game based on civilizations, right?
Yeah, well, okay. Vincent knows about D&D, right?
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons, yeah. So it's like that, but like with more lore or whatever. Like, and set in the 41st millennia. So it's like if like Catholicism somehow ruled the universe like well past our lifetimes, right? And they have these big hulking warriors, with power armor and like big guns and whatever, and
Okay,
everyone's a
what's your
slave.
point?
So my point is the concept that we are fallen because of degeneracy or like excess or every other thing under the universe, right? Resources and so on. That's been played out in Western storytelling for hundreds of years. And it gets more and more stark and less subtle the more we retell it.
Yes, so are you denying this narrative? Are you saying something else is the cause of decline?
No, I think he's just.
Let's not go into what the cause is, but yeah, no, I'm not denying it. I'm just saying it's been told over and over again.
Yes, so sorry, Vincent, what were you saying?
No, I think he's just. He is
Rambling.
agreeing with you. He's just saying that. I think he's drunk, and I think that what he was saying was that Well, I don't know. This has just been. He's not disagreeing with you, Claire, that degeneracy is the problem of imperial
Yeah,
decline. He's just saying what you've said again in a very long-winded.
yeah.
I'm just
So,
saying it's inevitable when you have a successful empire. That's all I'm saying.
okay, I mean, have you
And I'm
actually
also
anything
saying that
constructive to
that
say?
that Western people have warned our ancestors in abstract storytelling for hundreds of years. That's all I'm saying. And they don't listen because because their their empire was successful for a long time, and so they think
So they
that
won't be told.
they think they can run the gambit beyond beyond what actually is realistic. And I think I'm a product of running the gambit for way too long, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so you're just lying on your deathbed, hoping that death will come and take you, and you don't give a damn because you don't have children, and you're not going to change anything. You're not going to admit any mistakes. You're just going to carry on doing what you're doing and blame the Jews, right? That's basically your game plan, I guess.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying
Okay,
that's
I think you're not going to say anything new other than agree with me that this is your game plan.
sure,
You're just
but
going to carry
I'm
on
not saying
blaming,
yeah, but I'm not saying that's good. I'm
but
just
you're
like
you're you're not,
stating
you're not
something.
saying you're going to change your ways. You're going to do anything different. You're just going to die on that hill of Jew blaming, and you're happy to do that,
No,
right?
I'm not happy to do anything. I'm just saying, like, okay, well, okay, what do, okay, so your solution is laws and so on. All right, I don't want to, I don't want to get into the whole thing. What have you guys been talking about? I'm interested.
Well, this is the thing. Why don't you want to get into the whole thing? Because it's actually like she has a systematic program and you don't.
Sure. And
Okay, but
and
don't you think that that's a weakness? Don't you want to correct yourself and like come up with some kind of systematic legal system in order to correct everything?
nothing is set in one system. Like legalism is one system. It's not
Okay,
like
but it's necessary. It's not like it's very necessary. It's not like something you can dispense with. I mean, if you want to get somewhere in this world, you need to have a legal system, and there's just it's not negotiable.
sure. But the legalistic mechanism of society is just one of the various control mechanisms. For instance, like monetary like control is one of the other ones. Philosophical control, thought control, propaganda, art. There's so many other aspects of society that control our world. It's
And
not
those,
just
I know, and that
laws.
all comes last. And this is my problem with white men. You want to talk about art and philosophy, and you don't want to talk about, okay, actually, okay, what exactly are we going to do? How are we going to change the law? And how are we going to implement that? Not, oh, revitalizing the white Aryan spirit through art. Like, you know what I mean? That's not what you should be talking about right now.
I get it. I'm just saying you shouldn't like discount those other forces
I
because
Those
know, but
other
you're
forces are under the control of what is called religion, and you're not interested in admitting any mistakes, right? It's like it's the Jews who destroyed Christianity, destroyed liberalism. It's the Jews, and that's it, right? You're not going to
no,
say
no. I think well,
crap religion. It makes you stupid, and you hate it anyway. It's like oh, just go back to it because it's a religion of our ancestors, and oh, look what the Jews did to us. Oh, evil Jews, they did it to us, right? And oh, but we also look, Robert, you're a pagan, right? You hate Christianity so much, you have become a pagan in order to reject the Abrahamic God. So, um, you know,
I mean, I don't mind Catholicism. Catholicism is actually a little bit pagan in my mind.
Well, of course it's
Yeah,
pagan. The whole thing
I
is
know it
pagan.
failed. Yeah, everything failed, right? Everything's pagan. Yeah, sure.
But
Yeah, what about
Catholicism has failed as well.
the ancient Chinese stuff? I mean, do you just discount everything for
Well, the Chinese gave it up,
and
right?
thousands of years that made you who you
Yeah, they
are?
gave it up for Marxism, for democratic centralism.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you not want to be an Abrahamic centralist?
Oh, that's what secular Koranism is. It is about a one-party theocracy.
Yo,
Sure.
G'day, Rob. Ni hao, Claire. And hey, Vincent. What's up, everyone? How's everyone doing?
Okay. I mean, Robert, did you have a point? Were you going to say something before you were interrupted?
I'll just say thank God Jord's here.
Okay, so you didn't have to answer the question.
No. Let's
Right. So
I would
exactly. So now we can talk about anything except for a legal system, and we're going to talk about nonsense.
Right.
I love
Vincent,
talking about legal systems. What the fuck? I'm all about it. Let's do it. Let's legalize.
Okay. Shut up, George. Let Robert finish his point. If he ever had any, did you even have a point before you came?
I'm just saying that not all forces of history revolve around legalism. That's all my point.
Okay, because it's just sort of too practical. You want your dreams and your stories and your shit. Okay, and that
defines what future generations
the thing
believe.
you've already got your religion and your story, but you don't like it because it's Jewish, right? And so you reject it.
That's not what I'm saying. Hey, the Jews have their own thing. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but that can reside within their own hearts. What I was saying was this idea that legalism can somehow rule the world is very, very short-sighted, because legalism it's a product of poetry. It's a product of art and struggle.
No, excuse me.
But
legalism is a product of art. What are you talking about?
Yes, it is. It's also a product of psychedelia.
You're talking shit as usual. So
yeah, well, okay. It's fine. We can go back there.
Okay, you're gonna shut up.
I'd like to hear what Jord wants to say.
Jord, do you have a point, or you just want to add your voice to?
Well, I don't want to interrupt.
Well, obviously, Rob had nothing to say other than, can we not have rules? Can we just have, stupid stories, fairy stories and shit like that, so he can be entertained like a little boy? And what do you have to say, Jord? You going to agree with him or not agree with him? Or you going to say everything's going to be fine because we're white? Because that was your shtick before, right? Hello? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm waiting for you to speak.
Oh, okay. No, I'm certainly not going to say any of that. I was just, I find it interesting. I think you're both speaking from your ancestral memory, in a sense. I think, Claire, you as a Chinese person, I think legalism comes very naturally to you. And I think for Robert, as an Anglo, it doesn't.
He's just a lost boy, and he likes his stories, and he wants to, lose himself into, the poetry and the music of it, and he's not interested in anything practical, and he just wants to get drunk, right? That's his shtick.
Well, I mean,
and that's why it's over. It's over for him.
About culture. I mean, we've been getting drunk the whole time when we've been back.
Okay, no, George, do you have anything to say? Because
yes, chill. My first point is chill, Claire, because you seem like you're
okay. No. Don't tell me to chill. Make your point if you have one, or fuck off.
No, I have a point. My point is that it's a very interesting argument happening here. I would actually like to know Vincent's opinion at this moment.
Well, my opinion. Well, I I steal good ideas from other people, and I've realized that the Muslims and the Jews really got it down when they said, okay, if you want an ideology, it needs to have a legal system embedded in it. You're not going to get anywhere unless your legal system is embedded inside your ideology. Not art, not music, not fairy tales, not any of this stuff. What matters is the legal system. So yes, I do believe in a legalistic approach to things.
Okay. And right now you see that like the Muslims have their own legal system, the Jews have their own legal system. So rather than, and this is just a hypothetical, but rather than suggest if the contention, and I don't even necessarily disagree with that contention, that any kind of structure is going to be better with the legalistic framework inside of it, then why not encourage European people to revisit some kind of heritage-based legal system, and to, you know, like for example, encourage people to settle things, to mediate things outside of court, or to use English heritage tribunals or whatever? Why are we suddenly going to Koranism? That's my
Well,
question.
I don't necessarily think you need to go to Koranism, but I don't
Right.
think just some heritage. What are you talking about? What heritage legal system
We
is this?
already
The
have the English legal system. We have the common
Yeah,
law.
exactly. Yeah, we have a two-tier system though, right? So what we have is the English system for everyone, and then subsystems that exist within that for specific groups. What I'm saying is like, you know, and there are within English common law, what's so great about it is that you can go and settle a dispute, like me and you, Vincent, we could in theory go to like a white mediators union or whatever and have our shit settled as two white people. White people just don't tend to do that. They tend to trust more in the old institutions that are collapsing, unfortunately. But my whole thing is just why. Look, my thing is the same thing that I've always said to you, Claire. Some of your ideas are solid. Why is everything got to be couched in this like Quranist, Muslim, Islam? Like, why is everything got to be? You just suck at PR and marketing. No cap.
Okay, so Mr. PR, you're going to say, just listen to my bright young voice, and I can talk about bright young things that are just vague, stupid shit, right? We just have to talk about being white and being nice, and everything will work. Oh, forget the rules. Okay,
What is a Hoover? Do you know what a Hoover is?
Why are we talking about hoovering?
No, do you know what hoovering is?
Why are you taking the piss?
Do you know why vacuuming has come to be known as hoovering?
Because it became a verb because the first famous vacuum cleaner was called a Hoover.
Right. But so it didn't become Dysoning, right? It became hoovering. And understanding that is kind of crucial if you're trying to sell vacuum cleaners. Like you rebranding yourself as Koranism when your ideas aren't even innately Muslim is like you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Well, why is it not innately Muslim? Why isn't it?
It's the biggest own goal ever. You could have
No,
picked any text.
how am I going to?
Because the logical framework of your argument is actually
No,
sound.
I think you just want me to pander to your Islamophobia, right?
No,
You're not the first. No, you're not the first person to say, you know,
Okay,
it
wait.
sounds all right as
Look
long
what's
as you
happening with reform
take
right
the
now.
Koranism out of it.
Claire, look what's
Jord,
happening.
wait.
Look what's happening with reform right now. Nigel Farage finally got into a position where he can be a tangible opposition in Parliament, and he's immediately selling out to the Muslims, going out and making speeches like, "Oh, we're going to need to incorporate Islam if we want any political power. We have to pander to Islam." There's a real space opening up for someone who's just vehemently nationalistic and ethnocentric, and you're pandering to Muslims. Silly strategy.
Why is it silly? Why is it silly? Why do you think it's more sensible to pander to the likes of Rupert Lowe?
Because they're gaining support. Because Rupert Lowe is an intensely loved figure, both online and in real life.
Really, I rather doubt it.
Well, honestly, I think if you look at Farage's Twitter and how astroturfed it is, and compare that to Rupert Lowe, an organic guy, it's crazy. Sometimes they get similar amounts of retweets on their posts. It's like, wow, okay, like this guy has the actual support. And he's just some farmer with a shotgun living in rural England. But the thing is, he stands on the, you know, he doesn't even have a manifesto as long as yours. He doesn't have a book that he's published about. He just simply says, deport,
yeah, because hatred is so simple, isn't it? You know what you hate.
It's not hatred. It's
Of
love.
course it is.
No, of course it's not. Of course
Love
it's
for
not.
what?
Love for your people, love for your culture, love for your heritage.
Yeah. I mean, and
and
refusing to face facts about why you are the way you are.
well,
You
look,
know,
you have, I don't know if you know who Nick Tenconi is. I'm not like a Nick Tenconi fan, but he's an interesting character, right?
he's
In British
UKIP
politics.
and he likes blaming the Muslims.
Okay, yeah, he
And he
likes blaming
sounds middle
Muslims.
class.
Well, he sounds middle class. He is publicly Christian. He has one policy line, and that is mass deportations and
Yeah. Yes,
remigration.
I mean, the
And
Americans are doing it too. So
don't be surprised if UKIP starts gaining ground and parties like
I
Homeland.
don't think it's going to gain ground because the longer. No, I think Farage is the sensible person. You know, basically, unless you want to. Okay, so what you want? You people actually.
Farage is a sensible person. Come
They're
on,
just the new Tories.
you can do better. You can do better than that.
He's
Come on.
completely
So
sold out his
basically, you know, Robert fantasizes about the pogrom that he's going to be conducting. In order to conduct a pogrom, you have to be in office. You have to be in government, and nobody's going to vote for you.
I don't know what any of that means, but I will say Farage is like completely bought and sold. Like, am I wrong or?
Bought and sold by what and whom? He's just being sensible, and he's aware of the lie of the land. I mean, even Trump, to get elected, had to be not racist, right? He had to do that.
Claire, I know this is crazy for you to wrap your head around, but being ethnocentric and being, like, say, a British prime minister who is supportive of British people and puts the interests of the British people first, I know this is crazy to you.
No, it's no. You people seem to have forgotten about Enoch Powell and people like that. The NF, you know, they tried to do it and they failed, and the situation is worse now. And as a society,
Enoch Powell didn't have TikTok. Enoch Powell didn't have mass media. Come on.
Yeah,
what?
there are many things that make the landscape different from now.
Jonathan Bowden is only just now being recognized. He didn't have mass media on his side.
Right. So all you have to do is, you know, Ed Dutton, he wrote his potboil of a book, and then
I haven't read it, but I've heard bad things. I haven't read it. I've heard bad things.
Even when he was alive, he didn't have any bright ideas.
Who, Bowden? That's crazy.
He did not have any bright ideas.
Yeah, that's not Claire. He was a seer.
Yeah, he was someone who carried.
Okay, I've had enough, really.
You know.
Okay, so
I know. He was malformed. He was less than your Ubermensch, your Chinese / English Ubermensch that you dream of at night. I know.
Do you know that he was institutionalized?
Yeah, he lived in a caravan. Oh my god. Oh,
right. So now you're
he was a retard, right?
Yeah, right. So now
so why listen to the opinions of a retard, right? Fuck that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, why do it? Even though he inspired fucking hundreds of thousands of young fascists
to do fucking what?
To be who we are now, right?
Do what?
I don't know what they're doing.
To do what? To be drunk lawless? To be drunk and lawless?
Well,
Is that what he?
Yeah, sure. But okay, so it was just all for nothing then? His genius?
You still haven't got it through your thick head that race cannot be your religion. And even when you were all white,
even for Bowden, race wasn't religion. He respected the Japanese. He respected other races, Claire. He even respected the Chinese.
So fucking what? It didn't get him anywhere, and he died mad.
Yeah, that's what geniuses do, Claire. They die mad. Look at Nietzsche. Nietzsche died mad. That's what geniuses do.
No, they don't just die mad. Okay, we've had enough, Robert. Jord, any final words?
Well, look, I mean, people may very well say the same thing about you in generations to come. There is some point there, I believe, about real genius not being fully understood in its own time. And I think ultimately, you're looking at, you are right about what you say, the board is changing. You're right about what you say, the situation is far worse now than it was in Enoch Powell's day, right? And nobody listened then, so why should they listen now? Something radical, something new is needed. But I think where we disagree is obviously in the approach of couching everything in Islam. I just think that's the nuts. And I guess also what we disagree on is the black pilling of everything, right? So like where you see the situation worsening, I obviously also see it worsening. I just don't see it as a bad thing. I think what comes downstream of the changes in demographics that we have in the UK over the next 50 years will be very, very interesting to watch. I think we have a lot of American support, and in the future, we'll have a lot of American money. I think that people, as the situation worsens, that you've quite rightly pointed to the fact that the situation is worsening, as the situation worsens, people will become vehemently more nepotistic, vehemently more in group.
You can only be nepotistic if you have family groups. You can only have family groups if you marry and stay together for the sake of the children. You people don't even have that, and you don't even want to do it.
What's crazy is, of course, we don't have like major urban centers like we used to. But if you look at an ethnographic map of the UK, you will see that these families that you described do exist in relatively large numbers in a lot of different places. And obviously, seeing the country balkanize and split up into like, it's not something any of us want, but it does seem relatively inevitable given how things are going. If you look at like you see London being 30% white British, right, and Islam being the majority religion, and you see that as like, oh, okay, well then that's clearly an instruction manual of how I need to play the game. I don't. I see that as actually that's very good. Battle lines are being drawn. Like white people are leaving, they're going off into the countryside or whatever. They're hunkering
It's
down.
white flight.
No,
You think that's a sustainable reaction?
White flight's over. White flight was a phenomenon that happened in the 80s
Yeah,
and
but
90s.
you just said that the urban whites are going to the country. You're just saying, oh, ain't that a good
They've
thing?
gone to the country. Many of them are having children, and many of them are becoming Christian again. And look, it's not in the
Christianity is not going to do it.
Listen, clear Christianity, you call it what you want. It's really just table dressing. It's really just that what they're doing is they're returning to a slightly more traditional worldview. They are doing things like going to church again, like having kids and stuff. And look, you're going to be very, very surprised when institutions like the British Army, which remain majority English, majority white, when they don't necessarily support the government in the years to come. I think honestly, Claire, like you
Oh,
are.
you're hoping that somebody's
Not
going
hope, Claire. Not hope.
to,
I just want to say for the
lead
record,
a
I know
military
because I
coup
know
or something.
feds go out of their way to listen to even streams like this. I want to make it emphatically clear for the record. I am not hoping, wishing, or promoting or inciting. I am hoping that there's no violence in the future in Britain, but I do see a civil war type scenario in the next 50 years as absolutely inevitable.
It's predicted for 2029 by the establishment.
I'm talking more like 2049. Here's the thing, Claire. People like you make the common mistake of thinking, well, because white people have moved out of the cities, because they don't have political power, because they're no longer the mayor of London, etc., for example, because no longer they're visibly seen, because they've been replaced in the media, that they've actually been replaced in real life, and that is not the case. There are millions of us, and we're getting angry. So I just wanted to put that out there so you had a frame of reference, because
I do. I'm aware of the riots in the summer last year, and how you were all dealt with.
You've seen absolutely nothing, just for the record.
No, the point is that revolutions only happen when the
I'm not even talking.
the average
I don't
age.
think British people have the wherewithal to get any sort of political structure in play. I'm just saying the old one will burn. I'm not even saying that it will be fixed. Please don't think that this is some me saying, oh, everything's going to be rosy and everything's going to be fixed. I think things are going to get horrible in this fucking country, but I am just calling it how I see it, because people look at the urban centers, they look at the news, they look at the BBC, and they go, oh, there's barely any white people left. such a mistake to make. There's millions of us and we're fucking seething. Just for the record.
Revolutions don't happen in
Again,
the
we're not talking
countryside.
about revolution. We're talking about riots, resistance, mass unrest. Nothing to do with taking over the government. Nothing to do with. We're talking about a prolonged period of fucking anarchy in the UK. And yes, white people will get very nepotistic, very in-group, very familial very quickly. And that's not a bad thing. It's just unfortunately we've been backed into this position. So very, very sad times ahead. But nevertheless, you know, in a weird way, Rob is right. The figures like Bowden are going to be the ones that keep it alive, even if it's just in a intellectual sense, you know. So.
Okay, so all your
exactly, Claire. I know you always have this contention with me. You always say like, oh, you're proposing nothing, as if me, some guy on the internet, could propose anything to fix or change what is knitted by the fates into the fabric of destiny, right? Like this is what is to come.
Vincent,
What's wrong with you proposing a system? Why can't, what do you mean I'm just some guy on the internet? Like everyone who's ever proposed something was just some guy.
Yeah, Vincent, there's a common misconception as far as I'm concerned that these people like Adolf Hitler, they rise to prominence by exerting their will on the world. I'm a big believer in right place, right time. I'm a big believer in right place, right time. And honestly,
yes,
the economic and social factors make the man. There is no Adolf Hitler without, and the man makes the policy. There is no Adolf Hitler without Weimar Germany. And right now, things have to get a lot worse before they get better. That's just nature.
No, you switched it. No, Jord, you switched it. It was who am I? Some random guy on the internet to come up with a system to save people. That has nothing to do with.
Who are you? Who's Claire? Who's anyone? Is my point. It's not so much who am I. It's
well, if nobody did it, nothing. If everyone had your attitude, nothing would ever change and nothing would ever get done.
No, everyone does have my attitude, and everyone like me is getting slowlier and slowlier angrier, and eventually.
And what is your plan? And what's your plan?
No, listen. This is the way history works, right? People like me that get angrier and angrier and angrier. Eventually a person comes as it's really what that person is. And I don't want to be too woo and metaphysical with you guys, despite my Aleister Crowley avatar.
He's waiting for the Messiah.
No. Exactly. Quite the contrary. What that person is an avatar of everyone else's feelings. They are what they are. No, seriously, what they are is some fucking Messiah, heaven-sent Messiah come to fix the problem. Waiting for a Messiah is silly, but understanding that there will be movements in the future that will be galvanized and kind of pushed through the focal points of various figureheads is obviously going to happen.
Okay, well, one of these.
I imagine somebody extremely young and intelligent who takes the reins of what will ostensibly look like a militia to everyone else, and it will be horrible. I'm not saying it's going to be a good thing. Please don't think I'm saying this is going to be a good thing. I'm very much not against this. You can't be against the tides of history. That's just silly. But I'm watching this in with sadness, right? Like I'm not.
Okay. But this person that you're talking about, this avatar that's going to come and help you all, obviously this person's going to have a system.
No, this is the thing.
He's going to come out of nowhere and solve everything.
He might
like a fairy godmother.
And chaos. What he might arise out of is just fucking
Superman.
Okay, and what is his?
He's probably a deeply flawed individual, as most great men of history have been. You know?
Okay.
I've had enough.
Don't you think he's?
I've removed him. Do you want him back?
No, it's fine.
He's gone anyway. You know, he'll just go on like that and say the same thing again and again, and really just be hot air and nothingness. and out of nowhere something will come who will save us, and we don't have to bother with rules and ideas because we're too stupid to discuss it. Too cowardly and too afraid of each other, Well,
it's
very sad.
I know none of them want. I mean, it's bad to have a manifesto. It's bad to have a written out, fleshed out system. It's bad to write a book. It's bad to do all these things these days.
Well, we just have to dream in our heads and never meet each other and use fake names. They literally are in Cloud Cuckoo Land. And that's why, the people in charge will know they'll never amount to anything and they can do what they like to these people.
Well, that, yeah, they can just, and that they need to import other people who are more useful.
Yes.
Well,
While they fantasize.
well,
of them
I
as-
blame this. I'm sorry. I mean, I blame a lot of this on Christianity. I think that this is the terminal end when people. It's like Christianity still keeps affecting you even when people leave it, even when the way society leaves Christianity causes problems. I mean, like, turning, sex went from this super like, oh, thing that you don't talk about. And so of course people erupted in the other direction, and sex became just like, oh, this pointless, like, oh, let's just fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like it, of course it went in the other direction. It went crazy in the other direction. Christianity causes these like mood swings in society, but yeah, and they don't want to be like, I don't know. I blame this a lot.
No, I mean, I can understand why people would, in a, after a time of sexual repression, want to go out and have orgies. I get that. And I can understand why people think, well, I don't see any harm. What could be the harm if we just had sex with whoever we liked, kind of thing, right? But I guess, people capable of thinking long term, it's like, well, if you just let everybody have sex with each other, then nobody would bother getting married. And then, or if they did get married, they wouldn't stay together for the sake of the children. And the next generation will be basket cases, like the people we've been talking to, who can't put two and two together, who haven't emerged from childhood. They still have this sort of magical thinking, somewhere. Even the Jews have it. You ask them, how are you going to build your third temple? And they'll say, oh, the third temple's going to descend from heaven already built. So we don't have to worry about the architectural design or the labor required to build it. Even the Jews have got this infection.
Yeah, where everything's going to be fixed for them.
Yeah, their fairy godmother will come and wave a wand and everything will be okay. That's what they're thinking. And of course, if you're an adult male and you used to think in strategic, military, adult ways, you're thinking these people are not going to do anything to fix their problem. And you can basically do anything you like to them, because they're stupid and weak and they don't want to do anything anyway. I mean, and that's why, I think it's a status thing. A lot of the hatred that I think we both get is that we dare to propose solutions. It's like, who the hell do you think you are? Do you think you're better than us that you can propose a solution? You should join us and just complain and blame the Jews and get into trouble for blaming the Jews, like us. How dare you think you're better than us? That's basically how they think. How dare you propose a solution? You must think you're better than us, and therefore we hate you. So they can't even theorize, because in a lot of our ideas are theoretical. If this, then maybe that, and then, things might start moving. And they won't even theorize. They just want to dream and wish upon a star.
Well, I don't know.
But I think, they are, infantilized and feminized. And it's like, yeah, it's a problem of feminism, because basically feminism says gender is a social construct. But the thing is, if men and women are treated the same and expected to do the same things, and they won't be held to a certain standard. And if, you get women in the army, then it's going to be bad for military discipline, and they won't be as effective a fighting force as an all-male army. and there are all kinds of things that will make your society less efficient and cause it to decline and fall, and it's that's why all these religions are so intent on making men and women perform their gender roles, because if they don't, then they'll probably end up not having children at all.
Okay, I have to hurry up on getting my other new website up because I don't really have much hope in anyone else's plan. So we'll see. And I mean, as long as I get a selective breeding program going, no matter how small, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to worry about it. And you know what I mean? As long as you can start the seeds for, if I plant the seeds for the next tree to be born, I could see it turn into a sapling before I die. And that's basically what I just need to see a sapling grow up out of the ground, and, and then before I'm dead, and then I'll I can go to my grave with that. I can go to my grave with that, a sapling. I don't need to see a full tree before I die, because it probably won't happen anyway. So.
Mm-hmm. But talking about plants, I mean, isn't there a reason why plants are cloned rather than allowed to, cross-fertilize each other in the conventional way?
What?
When people grow, I don't know what they call it, botany or whatever, it's like they are clones, right? But they're not the offspring of, a great male plant and a great female plant. They are basically clones, aren't they?
Well, I guess you mean self-fertilization?
I'm afraid I'm a bit vague about biology, but I think if you're growing something, if you're in agriculture, and you think, oh, this is a wonderful piece of wheat, and I need to use this wheat for my entire field of corn or whatever, they get the seeds from special cloned seeds, don't they? Isn't that how it works in the plant world anyway?
Something like that. But I mean, yeah, you have to get the proper seed. There's creating the proper seed. There's lots of things that go into it. But yeah, I mean, as long as you start an organization to slowly grow and to slowly change society over time, you've got something, you know what I mean? You've got something, and if you're prepared for a collapse, then you got something. There's a lot of things that you can have without becoming a world ruler, without taking over the media, without these kinds of things. Not that you couldn't eventually take over the media, but maybe not right away. But you know what I mean, over time.
But we're just talking about the bare bones of the idea, because I know you're into eugenics, and I'm saying cloning is like, you see a fine specimen of a man or a woman, and it's like, instead of risking them contaminating their bloodline by allowing them to choose some unsuitable member of the opposite sex to have children with, why don't we just clone them? Right? And this is what has been done to plants, because I think in the plant world anyway, this works best, and I guess it's easy to clone plants, but you can't clone humans. And even if you could clone humans, they'll probably behave in a different way. I mean, I think I remember years ago I read some dystopian science fiction story about Hitler, and they cloned Hitler. And I think that the long and short of it is, or was it Stalin or one of the dictators? And it's like, it wouldn't work, because these clone dictators would just behave in a different way in different circumstances. And it's sort of like, if you get 4 Stalins or 5 Hitlers and you put them in a room, what they'll do is try and kill each other. It's that kind of scenario that I'm remembering from these stories. So, and also, okay, I read this pamphlet on eugenics, which actually I remember blogging about, but I can't remember the name now. And eugenics was quite a popular idea in Victorian times because there was, what was his name? Herbert Spencer, who was a social Darwinian, and there was somebody called, beginning with G,
What?
He was a social Darwinian, and I'm trying to think of, maybe you're familiar with the ideas of this social Darwinian whose name I cannot immediately recall.
Galton?
That's it. Yeah.
Francis Galton, yeah.
Yeah. So you're familiar with Galton?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm a little bit familiar with him. Yeah. Well, it's just, yeah.
So basically their ideas didn't work because, I mean, it just means that there has to be somebody breeding humans, right, in order to make the whole thing work. And the best government can hope for is hope that by using certain rules and enforcing them, you'll get men and women to marry each other, and hopefully their children will be okay. And that's why once upon a time, it will be, oh, think of the children, the women and the children. We have to protect the women and the children. And I guess it would make sense for men to want to protect women and children, because it is through getting a woman that a man has a hope of raising his status by having children through her. And he would want to choose a woman whom he hopes will be a good wife and a good mother, who won't neglect his children and who will look after him, and the usual sort of thing. But I just don't see how we're gonna come out of that, because that's the most simple way of running things. And it's like, well, if we're gonna have children, we'll have to hang around and make sure they're protected and provided for, because nobody else will want to look after. Okay, most people don't even want to provide and look after their children. They don't, and you kind of sort of said that it would be too much for you, and I think even heterosexuals would be would say it's too much for them, and that's why they don't want to do it. And that is why you have the system called patriarchy, with the government saying, no, you've got to marry, we'll support you, we'll privilege you, and be mean to the people who won't play ball. And that was basically patriarchy, and patriarchy had to be supported by religion, because when you come to think of it, the sex act can be completed in a matter of minutes. So people will think, if I cheat, nobody will know. And that's why you kind of needed this idea of this omniscient God who knows and sees everything, so people won't try and cheat.
Yeah, but getting people to believe in that is a little bit difficult. Yeah, but at this point, to get people. Yeah, but that's when people were less educated and people didn't have internet and all this other kind of stuff. And then it gets difficult, like which God, because when you have different religions coming in, people get confused and, they stop, it's, when in some like ancient Islamic village, where everyone was illiterate, there was no internet and there was no other religion around to even tempt you. It was.
Yeah, but even then they cheated. But the cheats would be discovered and punished. In these small villages.
The point is that it's very hard to get people in the West to believe, in Allah. It's going to be very hard to get people in the West to actually believe that Allah is watching over them and making sure that they're not having sex and all this other kind of stuff.
I don't think it's even necessary to have a literal, sincere belief. It is. People will pretend to believe in all kinds of crap just to go along to get along. So they may not believe, but they will have to, feel that in order to get a job, in order to get a girlfriend, whatever, they have to subscribe to these political orthodoxies, right? I'm
But
sure.
people are not going to uphold. If the vast majority of the population doesn't believe in something, then nobody's going to, conform to it. If the vast majority of the population it doesn't believe in Allah, then nobody's going to, be like, oh, I need to believe in Allah or pretend to believe in Allah in order to fit in. Like, if you're just a bunch of people pretending to believe in Allah, that's not going to last.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you don't have to, rely on that even. Nationalism is a big thing now in America and of course in Europe, because the idea that we want a government that looks after the national interest is very appealing, because we've had so many decades of crazy, stupid governments and are, doing things that are obviously against the national interest. And Trump, embodies this aspiration, because there was a time, an article in the USA Today saying, why couldn't he identify as a nationalist? Because he wanted to reject liberalism. And of course, you have two kinds of nationalism. You have ethno-nationalism and you have civic nationalism. And, you can say you want to be, racist, but it might be a bit too narrow, because even the Jews have to say that, we're not racist, because in theory, anyone can convert to Judaism, and we won't reject them as long as they do what is necessary. But even now, they're kind of divided, because there's Reform Judaism and ultra-Orthodox Judaism. But anyway, there is a mechanism to get converts. And what I'm trying to say is that obviously there will be, anxiety between white people and non-whites coming into their country and breeding like rabbits. And I think the tendency would be for white people to give up, because they think, oh no, we'll never be able to outbreed them, right? And that's when they retreat into just total silliness and calling themselves hobbits, like Rake does, and then just sort of gathering themselves into a group saying, weren't we wonderful? Weren't our ancestors wonderful? And wouldn't it be nice? And leaving it at that. And we're getting, okay, we got the younger cohort in Robert and Jord, because they're basically saying something will come up and he will be our savior. And then you get the older generation like Ren, Cobb, and Rake saying, well, I don't even know what they're saying. Do you know what they're saying? Okay, they're still blaming Jews as far as I can tell. And they're just leaving it at that. And there's no real concern about posterity. I mean, all they can do is, well, we really hate Islam and we don't like Jews, but we're too old to breed and we don't have children to urge them to breed. And so we're just going to spend the rest of our lives online, going round and round in circles and not even discussing possible solutions that might work. But okay, so in the UK, the people who think Nigel Farage is at least saying that, we mustn't be too mean to the Muslims, that we have to somehow get, a bit of social conservatism from Islam to make our people marry and have children, right? I mean, ultimately, when I think about it, that's all religion has always been about, frightening people into marrying, because that's the quickest way of fixing things. But okay, what I'm trying to say is that if everybody kind of thought, oh, we're all citizens of this particular country and we all have to have, I don't know, in China, they're saying they have a 3-child policy. So 3-child policy is kind of more realistic than, I think the Russians were saying they need 8 at least.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
So, which is very demoralizing to white people, right? It's like, we can't even find a girlfriend. Why are you expecting us to have 8 children? So they give up. That's what I'm trying to say. But if you say it's, it can't be done with, 3 children per couple, then it's not so scary. And this is basically what the Chinese are doing. It's like, yeah, 1 child was too few, it's gone wrong. But 3 child, it's almost realistic. Then you can talk about economies of scale. Yes, of course, the first child is very disruptive. You have another one and it becomes easier. You have a third, economies of scale kick in. Oh, look at our ancestors. They had 10, and what they did was they get the oldest child to look after the youngest child. And then they have some sort of hierarchy of siblings. You have to respect your older sibling, and then they'll look after you, and blah, blah, blah. And then you create a self-perpetuating system, which obviously feminism has disrupted. But I mean, if you say 3 kids per couple, then nobody's going to get demoralized and just want to fall over and die. So, yes, you do have to couch it in realistic terms that seem achievable. But if you say, 8 kids per white couple, of course they're going to just give up and die. But anyway,
Well,
I do think
they made a mistake. I mean, they just made it's their own fault. It's just that, I'm sorry, but the heterosexual men made such a lifestyle that nobody wanted to live in it. Even themselves didn't want to live like that anymore. And they just made something that nobody wanted. And now all they can do is say, let's go back to it. And that's just, people would rather die than, go back. You can't give people a solution where they would rather kill their own children than be involved in it. You can't do that. I mean, you just, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. If people would rather kill their own children or not have any children than do it your way, then you're
well, I
dead in
don't
the
think it's
water.
quite so hopeless. I mean, people go, women still coo over babies.
No, but
And
I'm
you
saying if you prevent a something, and then the people say, well, I'd rather just not breed and die out rather than do it your way, then
well, there are arguments that you can put to these people, right? I mean, of course you can. It's like, well, I mean, ideally, we should become parents, but not everyone is suitable. Some of us may have health issues, mental health issues, and some of us may be gay, and we don't, but it's like, it's obviously, a kind of tick list thing to be fully
well,
paid up
even
member of
even
society.
back in patriarch days, even men weren't treated that well. The men at top, the heterosexual men at top, did not treat the men towards the bottom very well. And heterosexual men are known for not treating each other very well. Look at war. Look at these different kinds of things. They're known for not treating each other very well, and maybe they don't want it back either. Maybe they don't want this kind of like male hierarchy thing going on anymore. Maybe they like having a more egalitarian, spread out. I can escape the lash of the great patriarch. Maybe these men like it.
Well, they should. Well, to be fair, you should say this is what we think has happened. You can choose this or you can choose that, and it depends on your reasons and your inclinations. But these things need to be discussed properly instead of being swept under the carpet.
Well,
While
I
other
don't.
countries are obviously aware of what is required, and they will do it because they still come up from a tradition that where marriage is expected. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know the Chinese are in trouble, but I think people can be shamed into like, well, why can't you admit you went wrong? It's like, well, nobody expects you to be perfect, but I mean, the least you can do when you went the wrong way is to turn back. There are things called, U-turns. And it would be crazy not to do a U-turn if you're, going to somewhere dangerous, which is likely to blow up or, collapse as at the edge of a cliff or something like that. And the thing is, look, Vincent, we don't have to do any of those things. Nobody's going to grab us and force us to marry and, chain us to the kitchen sink barefoot.
Well,
we
you're
can
going to
all
make
just
you're going
say,
to make it difficult for people to escape that lifestyle. You're going to make it more that people are trapped in that lifestyle than,
no, we just have to say, it's a serious business. Obviously don't do it for casual reasons. I mean, there's actually, in the Book of Common Prayer, that, this thing about, marriage not to be entered into lightly and frivolously and, that sort of thing. It's just like, it's already there. All these ideas that our ancestors knew are already there. We don't have to create it anew. We just have to go back to it. I mean, obviously, modernity is, well, sex and shopping is, well, very attractive. I mean, there's even, something called chick lit literature, which is basically about sex and shopping, which is, I guess, the preferred lifestyle of all of us. Except that if all of us choose it, we will be an aging and shrinking society complaining about immigrants. Until maybe we run out of immigrants, right? Okay, so we run out of immigrants, nobody's breeding anymore, and then we have to rely on the technocrats to make us robots, right? And then I guess the technocrats are going to exploit us with their robots and charging us, ridiculous amounts of money to fix our robots that, need to be repaired from time to time. That something bad will happen. And, I think ultimately humans are actually more flexible in being able to be programmed and they replace themselves if you get them to marry and have children. And that's how, we've managed to survive, whatever race we are.
Well, I just want to say, Claire, I was just thinking about this. If men were able to order themselves into monasteries, into Catholic monasteries, and live that way, I don't see what would stop them from attaching a nursery to the monastery and having children. Like, just live a monastic lifestyle but have children.
Well, child psychologists would say, what about role models? Children need role models.
Yeah,
They need to.
the fathers, the monastic fathers would be their role models. Yes, their father could be their role model, and the monastic. If men would just live together monastically and raise children monastically, then this could all
What
go
about the
away.
mother?
I didn't say the mother wouldn't be involved. I'm just saying that it would rely on the men to put themselves in a monastic lifestyle, and then they could have a nursery where the mothers would be and all this other kind of stuff. Yes.
Okay, so your ideal scenario is that there would be this monastery and there would be this nunnery, and every now and then the monks and the nuns would meet and have sex with each other and have children with each other, and there would be a creche in a separate area. And
it doesn't have to be separate. It can all be attached. All these buildings can be attached to each other.
Yeah, but I think eventually people will say, oh, your kid is bullying my kid, and I don't trust you to look after my kid, and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, please, no. The father would be there. The mother would be there. They could have their own apartments, and the child wouldn't be that far away, and they would have lots of input. And
so where would the children sleep at night?
well, they would either
in
have
dormitories.
They would either have their own dormitory, or they could sleep in their parents' room with them. Maybe depends on what the monastic order decided.
It's all very high maintenance.
Why is that high maintenance? They're able to make look. If men are able to get themselves into monastic orders, the only problem
because
with
they don't want to have anything to do with women. That's why they become monks. nuns become
Yeah,
nuns
well, I'm
because
just
they don't
saying
want to have anything to
if
do with men, and you're forcing them to marry and
I'm not
to have
forcing
sex
them to
and
marry. I'm
children.
not forcing anyone to marry. I'm just saying if men can monastically set themselves up, then they can set up a monastic breeding program. There's nothing stopping them if they don't want to get married. There's all different kinds of alternatives to this. You don't have to impregnate her. You can do artificial insemination, lots of different things.
Well, people would just worry about how the children are going to be brought up, and it's obviously very experimental. And the people who join nunneries and monasteries are basically voting with their feet and saying they don't, married life with
Okay,
children
well,
is not for them.
I'm just saying that if the Catholic Church set it up that way, they would be a lot further ahead than if they did it the way that they did it by getting people out and into monasteries and becoming celibates. That's retarded. If you can get people into monasteries, you might as well start a monastic breeding program because, you would just get high quality people coming out of that. And
Well, I rather suspect that monks and nuns were considered to be a parasitic class in
well, if they
those
started having
times.
children, if they were having children, they wouldn't be considered parasitic.
Yeah, but there will be, places for people who actually don't want to have anything to do with the opposite sex, right? And what you seem to be doing is, oh, gay people, let's make them have children. Nuns, let's make them have children with monks. I mean, I don't think you're recruiting from the most suitable, group.
Actually, I would think it was the best. I think most people who wanted to become nuns and priests and things like that were the most educated and the most, disgusted with the world and probably the most noble.
Retreating from the
Yeah, well,
world.
they were probably too good for the world, and so you want more people like that.
Yeah, so you can say, they could in peace, do their, illuminated books and whatever.
Well, you could do it in peace too if you have an ordered nursery where you can get away for the day and do your work but still come back and see your child, then you can do these things. You can have the best of both worlds if you do monastic breeding. If you don't do monastic breeding, well then yeah, you're going to be weighed down with children and exhausted by them.
Well, I guess in before the Reformation, monasteries, nunneries were considered, vital spiritual and social contributors. But during the Protestant Reformation, Martin Luther argued that monastic life was unproductive and parasitic. Okay, so there have been two views. In other cultures, in Buddhist traditions, monks and nuns often relied on alms from lay people. So, you still get these mixed opinions about these people. But interestingly, Islam just says no monks, no nuns. We don't need that sort of thing. Everybody go have children. There is no special virtue in not being married.
Well, yes, no, I know. Well, that's a smarter way of dealing with the situation. It's smarter.
But what I'm saying, yeah. But what I'm saying,
what the fuck were all these monks and priests doing? By the way, that was so important. Besides
they were praying for
rosaries.
people and probably, selling them all kinds of stupid stories to comfort them, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I mean there was nothing. I mean, they were just writing bullshit, and it was pointless. I mean, it was pointless. And yes, I do think it took the best men and women. You had to be educated in order to be one of them. And I think I actually think the type of person that might retreat from the world, you want more people like that because they're probably too good for the world. They probably just wanted to have a nice lifestyle of calm, patient meditation and, focusing on higher, loftier things than, going down to the Friar Tuck and, you know, getting drunk. So, um, you
I
know,
mean,
they were probably focused on higher things, those people. You know what I mean? Which you want more of that type of people. You don't want to take people that are focused on higher things and make them stop breeding.
well, I mean, you allow, you know, uh, different kinds of households. I'm not proposing to force everyone into marriage because some people are obviously not suitable, not suited for married life. I mean, people will, ultimately, self-segregate themselves. People who really don't want to marry won't marry. People who do will, and the people in between, well, they can either go with the flow or, let circumstances decide things for them.
I would say just add breeding to the monastic system, and you've got something there. And then you don't need to worry about these things. You don't need to worry about anything. Just
okay. Well, maybe ask Grok about monks and nuns breeding with each other and anticipating any problems with that.
Well, they were able to live monastically together without the children, and I'm just saying, if you just create a children's wing.
Actually, I sent you something from Grok about eunuchs, right?
What do eunuchs have to do with this?
Because eunuchs became very powerful in ancient China because the emperor of China had his harem. He didn't want any Tom, Dick, and Harry entering into the palace and having sex with his harem. So the only men allowed to be dealing with stuff would be eunuchs, castrated men. But it was also popular in Europe because they thought, oh, they sing so well if their voices don't, drop after on adolescence. So and there would be a kind of opera singer called the castrati. But okay, for China, it would be the king didn't have to worry about somebody wanting to create a rival dynasty to the current emperor of China. So eunuchs did have maybe you're thinking of something along those lines.
Because I'm thinking, I don't want eunuchs. I'm just thinking about, okay, people have proven they can live in monastic lifestyles. They've proven it. But if you want to keep that going, if you want to keep the monastery going without leeching off the population, getting people not to breed, especially your best people, well, then breed in the monastery setting.
Okay, I'll have a think about. I'll ask Rock about what possible problems that would come up with, getting monks and nuns to breed, and then having to find, children's quarters and how they're going to bring them up. I mean, it'll be there would have to be a rule like they all live in dormitories and then complain about child sexual abuse, or they all live with mom and dad and then they upset the quietness and peace of the monastery and nunnery.
Yeah, well, there has to be a little bit of push and shove. I mean, look, I don't think with parents on the premises that there would be that much molestation going on. If the parents are right there and they spend the evening with the parents, that would be like the same as saying don't send your children to school because they might get molested. Like the vast majority of children don't get molested at school. It's just doesn't happen that often. So just because you send your children into the nursery during the day doesn't mean they're going to get molested, especially if these are all people you know. I'm not saying just give them over to strangers. This is like Sister Mary Ann, a woman that you see every single day and know like the back of your hand, not some random stranger.
Well, I suppose with some children and some parents, I mean, they just don't want anybody else looking after their children.
But
they want to do it themselves.
Everybody has to let someone look after their children when they go to school, when they go out. If they go out, they have to get a babysitter. Like everyone has to allow strangers, or not strangers, but has to allow, or sometimes strangers, but has to allow someone that's not them to take care of their child at least some point in the child's life. They have to do it.
Yes, I understand, but it's all about preference and lifestyle, and all that. People just want to feel they have some kind of control over the the upbringing of their children.
They do.
And
I said the parents would have influence. The parents would have no less influence. It's just that they, that it's just different. They just live in a monastery instead of a house. It's not
Okay,
like,
well, maybe we should do surveys of, nuns and monks in
no, but they
monasteries and
already. I'm
nuns.
talking.
Would you fancy, becoming a parent? I'd probably go, no.
I wouldn't ask them. They've already decided not to have children. I would ask the general population if they would be willing to live in what appeared like a monastic lifestyle, but there was a children's wing.
Right, so it would be, then that they'd be kind of, classified as, parents who already show they don't want to be part-time parents, and then they would be shamed.
No,
if you just want to be a part-time parent.
We don't even shame single mothers who go out and get pregnant by crackheads. We're going to shame people that want to raise their children in a monastery. Are you kidding me?
Well, once we start doing it properly, people are going to be shamed, right?
Okay, well, no, well, that's not happening anytime soon. If we're not shaming single mothers, we're not going to shame monastic lifestyle people.
Well, there are not that many of them to shame anyway, because, most people are not becoming monks or nuns in our atheistic times.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that everyone needs to do this. As long as, look, if I died and I had one small monastery doing this, I'd be happy, Claire. I don't need, it can take a while.
Well, Vincent, if all you did was state the obvious, like this was how it used to be done. It was done for millennia before you were even born, and there is, it is the quickest way to do a U-turn and quickly replenish low white birth rates. That's the quickest way to do it. People don't have time to, do all these, make all these social changes that you have in mind, and for them to wait for them to take effect to do things. You can, kind of snap your fingers, really, because people instantly understand the concept of marriage and family, even if most people no longer practice it. And that.
Right. Okay, well, then go off and do your thing, and then don't bother us when we do it a different way, and we'll just take our time. Fine, go ahead, do your thing. I'm not stopping you from doing your thing, Claire. I don't think it's going to get anywhere, but, it's like, we'll just do it our way, you do it your way, and then we'll see who comes out on top.
Yeah, so, we can discuss the likely problems that, are going to be encountered by any policy proposal.
Okay, well, we already know your problems, that nobody wants to do it, and it collapses every 100, 200 years. Yeah, we know the problems.
Yeah, because, there's actually a book written by John, I've forgotten his name now. But anyway, he wrote the Fall of Empires, and John Glubb. And he's saying, every 250 years, empires collapse, civilizations collapse. And he seemed to be saying that they always collapse for the same reason. And it's basically imperial decline. Empires would think they're unbeatable, and then they let their hair down and everything hang out, and everybody, parties and has casual sex, and then they can't, then they get hooked on the idea, and they can't face having becoming parents and looking after their children, and then their civilization dies. I mean, I think have we discussed John Glubb before?
Yes, you have.
So you have read his short essay about that. Okay, well, maybe we should revisit it, but because it's basically repeating the lessons of history. But it was you who actually, brought the point home that Judaism is the strictest religion as regards sexual morality because it has the harshest punishments. And maybe even the theory of it is enough to keep Jews in existence because everybody goes, wow, Jews. You know, that they must be still here because of their religion. Wow. And then all the Gentiles come along and say, we're going to steal from your religion, which is your whole idea anyway. Let's go and steal from the religion of the Jews. And then I guess the Muslims came along. Let's steal from the religion of the Jews with a bit of, the Gentile bit of Christianity. And we've got Islam. Yay. Yeah, it's been done.
Oh my god.
Are you tired now?
Well, I don't know. I have to start, writing it out. But yeah, no, I'm feeling like something needs to be done. I have to get started on something because, this is what happens. I start realizing that things are so bad and that something needs to be done. And then I get motivated and I do something, or at least I try to do something about it. Let's say. But yeah, if I start a cabal of gay eugenicists that not only that do it in like every way, like, there's all different millions of ways to breed and different kinds of systems. And, you don't have to try just one. You can try all different kinds at the same time. You can try different methods. Try something new, try something fresh, new ideas.
Okay. So your new idea is, I mentioned the eunuch bit because you were saying, let the polygamists have their children and the gay people, positions of influence without having children. And I thought that the ancient form of this kind of arrangement was eunuchs in the imperial palaces of Chinese emperors. So that was the closest thing that I could think of that resembled your plan.
Well, I don't want to make people eunuchs. I don't think we need that. But I think that we need collective breeding. We need to take the stress off parents. We need to make it so that they can do this without becoming so unhappy that they wish they didn't. And then the thing is that, that leaches into the children. When children see that their parents are unhappy having children, then they don't want to have children.
Well, maybe they could have a more healthy attitude towards it, like, well, it's obviously a burden to have children. So we might as well try and be good parents to make the whole thing worthwhile.
Well, no, that's not going to change the fact that it's not necessarily rewarding. It's not necessarily, and you don't necessarily get anything out of it. Your children might grow up to want nothing to do with you and not take care of you. You know what I mean? There's not a guarantee.
Oh, but yes, that's why you had all these rules about respecting your elders and honoring your parents, way back to the Ten Commandments.
That collapses.
So that was a problem way back then.
That collapses because many parents are not good, and it doesn't matter. You could respect your elders, but if your elders treat you like shit, you're not going to respect them. You're not going to. It's not going to happen. You can say respect your elders as much as you want, but if elders are shitty, then people are going to dump them.
Unless they're too ashamed to be seen.
No, it'll overcome. Eventually, the hatred for life will overcome all these rules and laws, and people will just fight against it and buck against it, and it won't last forever. And then you'll be right back to where we are right now.
Okay, so maybe John Glove is right that every 250 years, empires and civilizations.
Yeah, because of the way that they're organized, because nobody wants to live in these traditional lifestyles.
Okay, so they can try living their monastic lifestyles or their 2-bedroom flats, and then have all the problems that we're having now. So
they wouldn't have the problems that we're having now. There wouldn't be collapse of marriage. There wouldn't be collapse of the breeding system. There wouldn't be people like starting revolutions, social and cultural revolutions to overthrow the order and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's just wouldn't happen like that.
Well, the only time you can have revolutions is when there are enough men of fighting age to do stuff.
Yeah,
and
well,
now, Western men are over. Well, the average Western male is over fighting age, and this means, okay, take it to the extreme. Imagine the average age of all Western nations is 80. You can basically do what you like with them because they're not going to fight back no matter what you do to them, right? So I think you would have to admit that the personality of a 20-year-old male is going to be a bit different to that of a 40-year-old male, to a 60-year-old male, to an 80-year-old male. They're going to behave in a very different way. And if you're thinking in terms of average age, it will have an effect on the national character. And what I advise people to do is, well, reverse the aging process by encouraging marriage and family values. It would be the quickest way of correcting the problem. But you want to faff around and, do your science fiction thing, which means that the problem will remain unaddressed, and you won't get your epitaph or whatever it is you want because you won't refuse to say the obvious thing. It's I can understand that you don't want to say it. If immediately you say it, you can be grabbed and made to marry some woman and pay for the kids. It's not going to happen to you. So you can still say the right thing and not be expected to do it, leaving it to other men to do it.
Okay, no, I'm just saying that if I don't want it done to me, I don't want it done to anyone else. And I do think that there's a better way of doing this. And I think that,
you're not the average person.
Okay, well, it's too stressful. Obviously, nobody's doing it because it's much too stressful. So you have to find
a lot of people want to do it, but they haven't worked out the situation yet.
Yeah,
a lot of people already have children.
Because it's expensive.
Yeah.
It's a lot of things. It's very much a brutal, unhappy lifestyle. The baby keeps you awake at night. And it's brutal. It's a brutal, people get, very run down from parenthood. It's a running down, exhausting effort.
Yes, well, but quite a few parents become grandparents and great-grandparents. So, it's not going to be the death of you. And maybe a lot of people are prepared to undergo this process.
Then why aren't they doing it right now if everyone's
because they're not being encouraged in the right way by the government, and so the problem is just political. And all you have to do is say the right thing. Why can't you just say the right thing? Nobody's going to force you to do it. Nobody's going to force me to do it. You can just at least say the right thing and point in the right direction. You don't have to climb that mountain. You just have to point in its direction. Let the younger, fitter people do it, and at least encourage them to do it instead of pointing the wrong way and watching them crash into the rocks below. Why can't we just do that? It's not that big a deal. Well.
Anyway, let me go, Claire. We've been on for 2 hours, so we've gone a while.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I'll talk to you soon.
All righty, bye.
Yep, bye.